Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hotline League. We are continuing through playoffs, and we now have two of our three teams that have qualified to Worlds. Very excited to be talking about that. This episode, we even have somebody from one of the organizations that has qualified. We'll introduce them in a second.
Spoilers!
We'll introduce them in a second. But first off, let me introduce my co-host for the evening. It's none other than Cubby. Cubby, how's it going?
I'm great. Excited to be here. We had a lot of games this past weekend. We have a lot more games this upcoming weekend, including LPL finals. So some of the leagues are starting to wrap up. EU finals too. This is my favorite time of year. We were talking about it a little bit before, but just seeing who gets to go to Worlds across all the domestic regions, it's really fun. So yeah, and then also Challengers League, of course, keeping us busy with playoffs too. So that's going to continue this next week. So busy time, but it's all been good.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun to see us get back into playoffs. I feel like we never, the league didn't recover completely from the big break, but now that we've gotten into playoffs, I've seen a lot more hype and energy, and everybody's getting excited. So it's really cool to see how the last couple of weeks have gone. But let's talk to our guest. We'll introduce him now. It's none other than Papasmithy from FlyQuest. Congratulations, Papasmithy! You've made it to Worlds. Through your hard work and your on the Rift gameplay and your picks and your drafts and your bans, it's been impressive.
It was all me. It was always me.
Well, no, I mean, what has this past weekend been like for you? Because for Cubby and I, we're like, oh yeah, we got to watch some games. I'm sure for you it felt particularly sweet.
For sure. I mean, honestly, the building phase of a team, whether it's signing players or the regular season where every scrim or game is like a learning experience that you can improve from, is a super rewarding thing. But playoffs are really, really stressful. You know, our goals before the year started were to make Worlds. We didn't have goals for spring. It was very much, we got some rookies. We're putting a team together of players, a lot of which didn't play last year in a tier 1 region. And so we didn't assume too much about spring. So obviously MSI and EWC were a bonus. It was all about Worlds. It's a double chance for Worlds, but when you get in the first time, obviously that's the most relieving one. That said, we had a lot of bangers yesterday. It was a 4-game series, but there's a lot of complicated emotions to work through. But obviously the sweetest possible victory and a steak dinner afterwards. So feeling good.
Nice. Are you able to reveal the steak dinner restaurant, or is that a place that you frequent often enough that you guys can't? It must remain under wraps.
Yeah, it's not good to dox yourself, but to be honest, if you are, an esports executive that has to take people out, as you know, it's mostly Korean barbecue, but the boys love steak. So there's a limited amount of steak places you can book on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night for I think we had a party of 18.
18? Oh boy, okay.
Well, we have coaches, unlike some other teams. So, given that,
you're feeling spicy tonight, man. Qualifies for Worlds. It is ready to fling fire.
We went Boa, the Boa Steakhouse in Santa Monica. Nice. Very classic.
That place is great. Yeah, that's a fantastic place. Very generous of the FlyQuest fam to treat everybody that way. All right. Well, congratulations. Speaking of covering expensive bills, let me announce our sponsors for the evening. It's none other than Prize Picks, Kia, and NZXT. And by the way, special mention here. I'll just announce this at the beginning of the show because I feel like we'll talk more about it in the break, but I want to make sure everybody knows about this. Next week on Finals Day, which is Saturday, just so everybody knows, finals are Friday, Saturday. Cubby and I will be at the Kia stage at FanFest doing a live episode of Hotline League. I might be reaching out to somebody else who's on the show right now, seeing if he can make an appearance. But we'll be doing that at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. So we'll be trying to get some friends to come join us, and folks who have watched our other live Hotline Leagues that I've done in the past with Mark will know that these are really special and really fun. We haven't done one for a while. So I'm really excited to be bringing it back.
Was I on the last one? Was it 2022 summer?
Spring, I think. Oh yes, we did
spring,
one.
Yeah,
we did one at the 2023 spring. We did one at the FlyQuest thing the night before.
Yep.
So, and then yeah, we did do one with Grubhub in 2022, but that will be We'll also live stream it on the YouTube channel and on the Twitch channel. So if you're not there, you can make sure to still catch it that morning before finals, which will be really fun. And then the other thing is, if you are in person, please go. If you're going to finals, first off, please consider attending finals. I think tickets are still available. But also, you can go watch it live at FanFest. And we'd love to see you there. We like to pull people up onto stage and give them the mic. And so in the same way that you can call in to the show whenever we're doing it here, you can also come on stage and do things that way. Have a conversation with folks that are on stage. Where I believe Mark will be joining us for 30 minutes on that episode. He has told me he will, and then he was like, I'm pretty sure it's still fine, so I'm now hard committing him. So if he's not there, then you all know that Mark has failed me. Anyway.
Using public pressure. I respect it, Travis. Yeah.
No, we got to keep him accountable, right? Listen, I've been using public pressure against LCS leadership for many, many years, and I will continue.
How's that going for you?
Yeah. Well, how's it going for any of us, really? But that's really cool. The other thing is we are doing a giveaway with NZXT. I'll give more specifics there later on. But for those of you that are trying to get the secret code, it is TGI, because I think some people might have shown up for that. So we'll talk more about the giveaway, but you can get a link to it by doing exclamation mark giveaway. Anyway, let's get into the show. So what all happened this past week, Cubby?
Jeez, I mean, ton of playoffs. We had the Energy Dignitas series, and then we had the 2 upper bracket series for LCS. We figured out 2 of the LCS teams going to Worlds. We figured out 3 of the EU teams going to Worlds. LCK is in top 4 right now. LPL has their finals coming in, so I believe BLG are locked with Weibo, and then Top Esports have to play their way through. EDG won Valorant Worlds, and of course that's kind of funny given a certain clip that was
call in here. Repeating Double-O's mistake 10 years later.
Yeah, pretty funny.
It was Justin, no?
No, it was Double Lift. I need to go back and find the video and just repost it again, but it was definitely Double Lift.
Yeah, I mean, it was really busy. Shout out to NACL too. We had some fun series there. We had 14 out of 15 games with our Wild Fearless format where there are no bans in Game 5. So we had a fun weekend. I mean,
All Pro.
There's so much league going on right now.
All Pro got released.
All Pro. MVP is not released and Rookie is not announced, even though I assume that's probably going to be Masu, but we'll see if Sniper gave him a run for his money. Yeah.
Yep. So our 2024 LCS Summer Split Awards, we have, I don't think APA had been announced as Most Improved Player since the last time we did this, but he also got announced. And then first team All Pro is basically Team Liquid with Blabber. Second team is Thanatos Inspired, Jojo, Berserker, Vulcan, and then third is Whippo, Umpty, Quad, Masu, and Busio. So Kia Rookie of the Year gets announced on the 29th, which is this Thursday, and then MVP is next Monday. So we can talk about All Pro if people want to, especially now that's been revealed. I did a video this day, or that I recorded last week, but I released this day, which was talking about core and impact and how just while it is, I know they get a lot of attention because basically the video was like, hey, these people deserve your respect and they don't get as much respect as they should. And a bunch of people were like, what? We talk about how great these players are all the time. And I think a lot of people talk about how great they are, maybe that split, or just like, oh, they've been really good for a long time. My video was basically like, hey, listen, these guys are a blessing to the league and stand out not just within the context of the league, but also LoL Esports in terms of their longevity, their ability to foster talent, what they've been able to do. The fact that I think right now most people have Impact as the front runner for MVP, and these guys are ancient at the ages of 29 and 30, respectively. So they're 1 foot in the grave and they're still doing this stuff. So I think that's a fun topic if anybody wants to discuss that. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else from this past week.
I do have a call, actually based on that video already pulled, and also don't look at the age of CS pros. If you think 29 and 30 is 1 foot in the grave.
Yeah. I mean, in
Yeah, you may not
League,
like that.
it's
Yeah.
ancient.
Arrogant's still fragging out. He's like, what, 34 now? He's getting
Yeah,
up there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Either way, so we'll be doing that after the stream. By the way, I will have I'm going to a sponsored stream to play World of Warcraft because that came out officially today. I guess they were doing early access last
You're
week.
gaming after this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
All right, go Travis.
I'm playing WoW. I'm hoping to reach 80 on stream tonight.
Wow. Okay.
I'm basically what I'm trying to do is get ready to interview the LEC pros at Worlds, and so I'm playing World of Warcraft right now so that I can talk about their preparation. All right,
even though it is going to be there,
let's talk about League of Legends esports though, not World of Warcraft.
All right.
So we want to just dive into calls?
Yeah, we can. If you guys want to call in though, you can join us discord.gg/Travis. Drop your take at me at Cubby in one of the topics channels, and you guys can talk to Papasmithy, Travis, and I about any of the wide range of topics that we have to cover. League is really fun right now. So hopefully we have some good calls. I've already pulled some. So if you guys are ready to get in, I am as well.
Nice. Yeah, I am too. So let's
Cool.
go ahead and hop into that first call. While that happens, or while we're making that jump and grabbing somebody, let's shout out some subs. Thank you to people who did sub to the channel. We got LOL Globus, Era Hydrus, Shavul, George Zulu, Showtime, Tylosin, Melon Dog. Oh, Melon Dog at 3 years. Congratulations. Goat Cheese, Zona J, Cruelis, EMBW. Hope you're enjoying your trip. And Your First Hooker. Thank you for the Prime. I'm sure that refers to Blitzcrank and Thresh. Maybe Nautilus. Icebreaker Mints, thanks for becoming a member, or for being a member over on YouTube. And Kikazaru. I don't know why I struggled to say that name, but thank you also, as well for your membership on YouTube. We got Dr. American here. Dr. American, where are you calling from?
I am calling from Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. We get so many Houston callers. I really like it. What do you want to talk about on the show?
My take was that I watched some of your video on Corejj and Impact, and I actually had this similar idea before you posted the video, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I stole from you. Your friend told me about it, and I used it as inspiration. So,
I think they just should be considered the next Hall of Legends candidates. No one else has their pedigree. I actually went on ChatGPT earlier today, and I just asked it some questions, and then I went on to a stat website. Basically, Faker has 840 wins, 406 losses, 67%. And then Impact has 61%, 500 wins, 300 losses, around there. And then Corejj has 462 wins, 60%, and then 300 losses. But basically, they're just, no one else has their pedigree. Like even Chovy or Uzi, any of these legends. Ambition is probably the closest one, maybe, but he doesn't have the longevity. So I just wanted to give these players like the flowers that they deserve. And I really think Impact should be the next candidate. Corejj is definitely a closer runner-up, but just their world titles and the longevity, and then the percent winnage, and then especially Impact because he's been on so many different teams and has done it so long on so many different environments.
So you would give Impact 2025 Hall of Legends, and then Corejj 2026 Hall of Legends, it sounds like.
I mean, unless you can persuade me on other players, I'm like not that well-rounded in the whole scene, but it looks to me like they're the two top candidates, especially if they do
I'm right
really
there
well.
with you. Let's get these LCS players their skins and crown them Hall of Legends. I'm ready for them to control the next 2 years, and I'm completely in with this. I assume my co-hosts here, our guests, are also on board with this too, right, guys?
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be Uzi to farm the Chinese market at all. Not going to be the case.
Wait, Papasmithy, weren't you on for the Hall of Legends episode previously? Wasn't that like a big topic on that episode you were on?
I don't think so. I had some public, I had public takes about Holo Legends.
Yeah.
You might have read
That's
my
what I
take
think
on
it
it, but
is,
I wasn't on the episode.
I feel like I've seen you post about it a lot on Twitter and in Twitch chat or something when we're doing episodes, so that's probably what it was. Okay, so ChatGPT implies that these two people should be the next Hall of Legends winners. What do you think, Papasmithy? Do you agree or disagree with our caller and ChatGPT?
I think the short answer is I disagree, just because of the opportunity cost of it being one person per year and Faker being the only person in it. But I think the discussion of the i.e. Hall of Legends, is the more interesting, nuanced one, because for sure Impact and Core have some of the prerequisites to make you consider it. Like, I think a World Championship title is a really important one. It's not a prerequisite. Uzi will get in with that one, for example, but I think that's like something to look over. I think a long distinguished career in a tier 1 region is something that's important, but the gist of the take that I made is that it's such a shame that the Hall of Legends is one person per year and a expensive skin is associated with it as a prerequisite, because it just precludes interesting discussions of who should make the Hall of Fame and who shouldn't. Like, so many people could make the Hall of Legends. There's like a lot of people you could consider, but they just won't be considered because you're solving for maximum impressions, maximum sales, and things like that. Actually, in 2000, I want to say 17, might have been 16, when I was still working on the caster side, I was actually one of the first people to try to really champion a Hall of Fame. On the inside of League of Legends, we were approaching 10 years of the game. I think that would have been, I want to say, 2018 technically, depending on how you count 10 years or 9 years or whatever. And there wasn't a lot of support for it then. And so for it to finally get ratified, but for it to be this very specific, let's sell a skin for the most famous player version, kind of makes me wish there wasn't anything, just because what we got is like not what I hope, you know? Like, I want to celebrate all the people. Like, my idea was the initial person should have been Madlife, just because he like revolutionized the support role and made it cool when it was considered like a role no one ever wanted to play, and he retired kind of early in the game's lifetime, and he's just someone who would have a banger Blitzcrank or Alistair skin or Thresh skin, I guess. Those are kind of his like 3 big picks. And if you know, you know, but it's not an if you know award. It's who's going to sell the most skins. And so Madlife will just never make it in.
Let's question for you both. If because I saw something in the chat say like Hall of Legends should be one person from each region each year. Let's say this crazy world where something like that existed, and maybe that's also like a way of them to bring in more people, like you're suggesting, Papasmithy. Like, what I think a lot of people would have Doublelift and or Bjergsen up at the top of that. I'm kind of curious where you all would put Impact and Core in that conversation, and you know, if they are not ahead of Doublelift and Bjergsen, like how many more years of this like performance that they're having right now before they enter that realm?
I think criteria is always so interesting, right? Like, I think the criteria that some people will include and some people won't is like cultural awareness, you know, or like how many people that kind of their gameplay convinced other people to play League of Legends kind of questions. Like, the cultural impact, I think, would give Doublelift and Bjergsen the advantage there as a North American candidate. But if you're asking, like, do Impact and Core make top 5? Of course they do. You know, they're just not 1 and 2. Like, 1 and 2 are pretty set in stone. People have different order. I'm a Doublelift 1, Bjergsen 2 kind of guy, but I understand the arguments feel the way around.
Yeah.
I think we're getting closer to the Impact 2 world, though, if he keeps on playing with, like, at least this level. I mean, I have Impact above Core just because Core came over later. Impact has always been, like, really strong for me. I mean, Core is too, but if you're gonna keep the criteria as like 1 per region, you could make the argument still that Core is like did he accomplish more in LCK at like by this point? No, but it's a lot closer than Impact, just given the years over here, which I think is a little bit tricky. I am with Papasmithy though, and I think the biggest gating factor to the Hall of Legends is just the 1 person per year. I really don't.
Right? It's not even. You don't even have a local Hall of Fame. Like, if there was an NA Hall of Fame and it was like, why do more people from Korea and China make it into the World Hall of Fame argument? That's at least nuanced. But with it being one global representative, that's where it just gets a little bit, I don't know, I kind of eye roll a little bit about it, which is sad because I love stuff like this.
Go ahead, Cubby.
No, I just think that, like, it's so gating. I wouldn't even region gate it either. Like, you want to at least, like, the point of the Hall of Fame is, I mean, exactly what Papasmithy was explaining in the first place, is to honor the great players of the game, and especially do it, like, as they leave, so, like, you can recognize the relevance that they had on the game and their impact, whether it's gameplay or culturally or whatever, right? And yeah, I mean, I if it's done right, it should be a Hall of Fame where people like Utapon or BRTT can exist and actually live there because of what, like, they did domestically, and recognizing that, hey, they didn't make it internationally, but they still had a, like, massive impact on this game where they competed, right? And the setup they have right now is just to farm skin money. It does not honor the esport at all, and that frustrates me.
So I do kind of want to bring it back to Core and Impact, because obviously I understand why we're talking about Hall of Legends.
Yeah.
Just within the context of their accomplishment this week and also this year, is there anything in either of your mind? Like, let's put it this way. I think when people think the greats of North America, they think Doublelift and Bjergsen. What is fascinating to me about Core and Impact is, like, they are 30 years old, they're 29 years old, and they're still first team All-Pro. They're still lifting trophies. They're still going to represent us at Worlds. And I think a lot of people have a lot of, as much as any North American fan can muster up faith for the region in 2024 internationally, I think these players are still giving those folks that kind of hope. And so I wonder how many more years, because it doesn't seem like I don't think they're retiring at the end of this year. I mean, maybe at some point in time they'll just decide to go out on top, but, like, it doesn't, they're not giving those vibes. So, like, how many more years do these two need to play before they start to surpass sort of the North American greats? Or is there anything they can do? Is it just like Doublelift and Bjergsen, such founding members, that, like, we're never going to move either of these guys up ahead of them?
I think my bias is always going to be towards players in the earlier life cycle of the title, just because I was around for all of it, and that's, like, the stuff that is going to be like a Wikipedia article to, like, the newer fans who didn't get to witness it. But I do kind of want to walk down a path with you, Travis, because I feel like there's one more arbitrary checklist thing that could, like, really catapult them to contending for top 2 rather than, like, clear 3 through 5. I think, a Worlds achievement, like semifinals at Worlds, like a close 5-game series in quarters, TL delivering on the promise they've threatened since MSI. I think that's something that will reframe the discussion. And there's also just, like, a critical mass of titles where, obviously, if the rumors to be true, we're moving to a 3-split system next year, going to get to these weird equivalence scenarios that LEC are already in, of, like, how many titles just counts when there's 3 a year, and what if one of them is a different format to the other? Like, we're about to get into headaches, but I feel like we'll know it when we see it. Like, so I'm personally probably, like, a year and a half of domination away from, like, crowning it, but I also would, like, absolutely listen to an argument, if there's, like, one more clear tentpole thing they achieve.
I mean, if Impact wins this split, he would be at 7 titles, and Bjergsen was at 6. And I think that would maybe eclipse Doublelift as well, because Doublelift was he 6 too?
I think, like, I thought Peter was 1 up, but he might have also been at 6.
Then, I mean, Impact would either beat or tie Doublelift then.
Doublelift is 8, says Z-Proto. Okay.
Oh, he's 8? I mean, Impact
that
would
makes
be
sense, because
already. That's pretty wild.
Peter was doing a bunch of stuff with Team Liquid. He, like, won some with Bjergsen, then went off to,
So
let's bring in the Cola's point, though, because I know the Cola was, apart from deifying Core and Impact, it was Hall of Fame, and I think, or Hall of Legends, and I think that's Cola where this kind of falls apart, is because it's a global award, and North America has traditionally been the 4th best region, and sometimes punched up to be, like, kind of similar to 3rd, but mostly a clear 4th. It comes into these arbitrary, like, how many NA titles equals 1 LCK title. If you're dominant in LCK, surely you get the nod earlier. I think it's very, very difficult for a LCS player to contend with Hall of Legends. Like if you actually follow the Hall of Legends format and think about sales and try to work out when would Double Lift get in, I think you're like, if you want to be optimistic, you're like 9 through 15 or maybe later than that. And is League of Legends even still a vibrant game at that point? Like these are like the dark places you get to on that one. So I think that I'm all about kind of like championing what Impact and Core have brought this region. I think we would be insanely poorer without them, but the Hall of Legends entrance part is, I think, where unfortunately the argument falls apart.
Yeah. That's the other issue with the format is like you could argue that a player like Madlife is already out of relevancy. What happens with Double Lift in 5 years when he's not going to be like one of the next 5 players inducted?
And he might still be a big co-streamer, right? That's the chance there.
Like you find so many people that like end up falling out of even being considered because they're not going to be culturally relevant anymore, and I think that's a big issue.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Dr. American, do you want to rebuttal or say anything to any of what we were just saying? I don't know if this had any impact on you. I know we kind of talked around it a bit, mostly because I did want to make sure we talked kind of the legacy of these 2 players as North American players or LCS players, but yeah, curious what your thoughts are.
I like the pioneering part. Like obviously, like the first people to pioneer certain aspects of the game is very important. My main point is just like Double Lift. Didn't he never get out of Worlds? I'm a huge Double Lift fan, and I watch his co-streams and all that stuff. But that's just another thing for me. Is like he never made it out of groups, and I think Corejj has 2 world titles. I'm not sure, and then
one win and 1 second place.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about Impact? He only has 1, right?
1 win.
Yes.
Did he make it? Did any of the C9 teams make it to quarters though? That what he was on?
Quarters, yeah, yes, multiple quarters.
Yeah.
So my main question to I guess y'all is I believe I have faith in TL and FlyQuest and C9 if C9 makes it to Worlds. What if TL actually we already kind of talked about it, but my main point is like I have faith in them, so I think they will do something at Worlds, and I think that will change the conversation quite drastically.
I mean, I do think part of the reason I raise this conversation is just because I think they are worth a lot of attention in terms of like greatest players to ever play in LCS, and I don't hear them talked as in the same breath as Double Lift and Bjergsen, and seeing what they're doing this many years on, and the fact that it feels like they could just, for all we know, they could do this again next year, or at least be up near the top alongside FlyQuest. That we will, it's just like how long until they enter that conversation. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see how things play out over time. But if they do well at Worlds, I feel like we'll be going back to this episode, or I'll be going back to that video and being like, okay, how about now, guys? So thanks so much.
Those conversations are so rewarding, Travis. I love those conversations. I saw your video and I appreciate it because things I love to debate are these things where there's like a lot of nuance. Like to a lot of people, be open shut who was like the better LCS jungler, Meteos or Blabber, especially these days. Just because of the longevity aspect. But I look at what Meteos was doing, innovating the world meta in 2013 through early 2015, and that, really resonated with me at the time. And I think of Double Lift in 2012 OGN when every Korean AD carry was worshiping him as the best AD in the world. And I think about what does that mean compared to a 2023 title or finish. And I don't know the answer, but fuck, I love having the conversation. So I that's like the stuff I think about.
Well, and part of the reason I did that video as well is because, look, Impact and Core just don't get a lot of attention. And when I do that, I say things like that, there are people that rush to the comment that are like, what are you talking about? And that's because they're listening to like co-streamers and talk shows like this, and they're catching every part of the analyst desk where people are talking about it. But I can tell you that if you like interviews that I do with these players, content around these players, like that video will underperform. There's a lot of people that just don't give them much attention because they tend to be quiet, because they are not from North America, because they do sort of sly like trash talk versus like, of course I'm going to win. I'm an 8-time trophy winner. Let's see if we pick up another one. How much do these guys ever talk about the fact that they've won Worlds? So
we agree with one thing though, Travis.
Yeah.
Impact is a core part of the best graphic of all time, which is the Impact versus Fake God achievement graphic, if you remember.
Yes, that was peak LCS. That was when the broadcast was firing on all cylinders. That was great because I feel like the takeaway for those that don't remember, there was I think this was when High was on the Alice desk during peak COVID, and co-streaming had just started, and
yeah, it was 2020 spring or summer for sure.
And High brought up a graphic to be like, okay, like look at these two players in comparison to each other, and like there's a big gap. And because all the co-streamers don't listen to any of this stuff, they just have their screen filled with this.
And they're bullying him.
Yeah, LCS is shitting on Fake God.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember that.
That being said, if you had it muted, you would have had the same issue. Like the graphic was poor because it was like so crazily stacked. It was one times like finals attendee versus like obviously Impact's. It was only Impact's LCS and Worlds, so it didn't even have his OGN titles. It was like, but it was still crazy lopsided. But what a graphic!
I found the clip. I was hoping I could find the graphic to bring it. Oh yeah, here we go. I'll see if I can pull this.
What a banger!
While we talk about
it was a lot. Yeah.
It's such a good graphic, man.
But yeah, it is funny to see how this stuff goes. I'll put it up on screen while our caller gives a shout out. Anything you want to say, caller?
Oop. So yeah, just the finals at Houston was awesome. I went there and actually watched Hotline League live when y'all did it live, and then that was like probably my favorite event I've ever been to. And I've been to a bunch of sports events, and it was just so fun meeting a bunch of people. I met Captain Flowers, Golden Glue, a bunch of other people, Olive May. So yeah, just bring back the stage finals and stuff. It was awesome. So yeah,
beautiful.
And big fan of all y'all. So appreciate all the content.
Good.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling it in. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for shouting out to the finals, because I think we'll have a good time with it in the future. So thanks for the call, and we'll catch you next time. Yeah, that graphic. I'm glad you brought that up. I had forgotten. I remembered that it was Fake God. I had forgotten that it was Impact with on the other side.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's see where are we at. Oh, let's do a sponsor shout out. We'll talk about NZXT, folks.
Yeah.
We're doing a giveaway with NZXT, who sponsors not just TGI but also FlyQuest. And I think I'm sure what happened was Papasmithy heard this morning that I was going to be doing this giveaway with NZXT, and he said, "Travis, I got to get on the show to help promote the H5 Flow case giveaway." You all were doing one too, yeah? I think I saw.
That's correct. We are also on FlyQuest socials doing a similar promotion, but I don't want to eat into yours. But
no. People should go sign up for both
and come and get on there too.
Yeah, go to both.
Go sign up for both. I highly recommend it. Yeah, they're giving away a H5 Flow case as well. So go check that out. But yeah, if you do ! giveaway in the chat, you'll get a link that will allow you to go sign up for this. There is a bonus secret code that you can use to get a bunch of entries into this thing alongside all the other activities. And the bonus secret code I mentioned at the start is TGI. TGI, simply those three letters, and that will give you 500 bonus entries in alongside all of the other things and activities that you can do there. A lot of those are going and following me on social media, so it's pretty easy. You should all be doing that anyway, of course. But yeah, go check out the H5 Flow case. They've got first for the giveaway. The first place gets the RGB case. Second place gets the standard case. And this is a new announcement that they made at Gamescom, I believe, which is it has enhanced airflow in the same popular size as the previous one, and it's got the new Kraken Elite pump, which is fantastic to see in that tower. I don't have this yet. I'm gonna have to talk to them about trying to get one for myself. But yeah, this was newly announced, and you could be one of the first people to get one if you enter through the giveaway. So thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring not just Hotline League but also FlyQuest. It's cool to see them in the space supporting folks. And I know I say this all the time, folks, but all the things that you all get to consume for free, shows and the LCS broadcast, Worlds, etc., that is made possible by sponsors. So anytime you can go out of your way to kind of help support our partners is always really appreciated. In this case, there's a chance for you to get rewarded for that by winning one of these things. So please go sign up. It's always really cool whenever they see a whole bunch of entries that are coming through on our end. And yeah, go check out the FlyQuest social for theirs as well for double your chances to win.
And
Anyway,
if you're not
thanks
a based
go ahead.
NACL enjoyer, our NACL team is actually known as FlyQuest NZXT Challengers, and their pursuit of the Challengers title to repeat after taking the title down in spring is powered by NZXT. They sent PCs to our players. So our Challengers team that will be battling this weekend, they are absolutely being lifted up by NZXT. So big shout out to them.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll link the FlyQuest giveaway in chat right now. People who are watching after the fact, you'll have to go find it on their social, but I'll put a link to it in both the YouTube and Twitch ones. So awesome. Thanks, NZXT. All right, let's get into the next call.
All right.
Off Cubby goes. Shout out to Saris. I hope I'm saying your name correct over on YouTube. And then on Twitch, we have Shavul, George, Zulush. Oh, yeah, we got these folks. Enjoy this double shout out. Cruelis for the 51 months. Let's see. Treethan, 45 months. Gerg, thank you for the 13 months. Hope you're doing well, Gerg. And then Crayon 295. What's that?
Shout out to Gerg.
Yeah.
Shout out to Gerg, yes. Is there anything interesting? It's been a very quiet year, I feel like, for the League Ops team in terms of like fines or usually they're punishing people. What's that?
By the way, I found 3 bugs. I've sent them all to Gerg.
Bugs?
And like VOD reviews and stuff.
Oh, I wasn't talking about that. I'm saying they haven't had to issue like
they take care of
public
bugs,
declarations of punishment, I feel like, for any LCS teams or LCS players. So, Busio.
Still time.
Hello, Busio. Busio, if you'd like to join the show, you're more than invited. You're more than welcome. I don't know if you heard, but I did extend an offer to the players for the team. So.
Give the boys a day off to celebrate, Travis.
This is a celebration. This show is a celebration. All right, our next caller is here. It's none other than Emily. Emily, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Culver City, California.
Ooh,
Emily.
I have you at 200%. I don't know if you can get closer to your microphone, but you're a little quiet.
It is like almost in my mouth. So
okay, great. Yeah. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So this is piggybacking off of the last question, and I just kind of wanted to chat with Papasmithy about it because he is also someone like myself who's very invested in League of Legends history. And I think, so he might disagree with this, and then the take ends. The first part of it is that I think we do an absolutely piss poor job of contextualizing a lot of League of Legends history. And then my second part of it would be, in his opinion, like, what needs to happen that we can do a better job of like lionizing our players and like putting their achievements into a better context for the like competitive aspect of the sport.
But the first point of we do a poor job, I think, obviously it's a bit like, lining up the pins for me in particular, because I've been complaining about this for a better part of 10 years, but I totally
knew you were
agree.
on my side.
I think that at its core, the thing that I'm most disappointed by is I think the best thing about a Hall of Fame is that it celebrates people who have like bounced out of your game, and it doesn't necessarily discriminate on like kind of when they retired or when their contribution was. So I always wondered what happened to the first and second generation of pros, like the people that retired before the VC money came in or before 2016 or things like that. And the Hall of Fame is supposed to be where they get their time to come out and smile and kind of like feel excited that people remember their accomplishments, some of which in the context of when they happen, some of which they have to have the context summarized for them. But those people like never getting a shout out just because they won't sell skins is like one of the most depressing kind of like realities of this. And I think to your point, Emily, like sometimes it's like just the reality that, I remember when I was casting, I found out that the average view time of someone in the stream, and this is back in like 2016, so it's probably the stats no longer true in 2024, is like the average time that a Twitch chatter had been watching pro play was like 6 months. Like that's the majority of people have been watching 6 months or less. And so a year later, that's still true. And you're like, oh, what does that mean? Because there's churn of people who, maybe are watching in college and then graduate or whatever the case. I imagine it's probably longer now, but that was the number back in 2016, 2017. And I think it's on the broadcaster or the broadcast itself to contextualize. I think one thing that really hurt me at my core, but I felt was like an obligation of mine, is probably my favorite player of all time was Dade. There's a player that's like forgotten in 2024, but previous world finalists, multiple LCK titles. And the thing about Dade was he had like lots of highs and lows in his career. People remember the worlds where he failed out. I want to say that was 2014, might have been 2013. 2013 is when he failed out on White. And I think that I remember he had retired, I want to say in 2017. And so when I wanted to talk about Dade on the LCK broadcast, even though it was mostly people who had only been watching Korean League of Legends at that time, I still felt the need when a player had been retired for more than 6 months, or even on like a really small team in China at that point, I would explain who Dade was so that I could invite the most viewers to understand a reference. Even though internally I wanted to be a snob and just talk to the people who actually knew the person, I thought it was my job to increase the circle of people so that they understood the reference. And I think as the years have gone on, we get more and more exclusive with the language and the references we make. We don't actually kind of open that context, and that can be content videos, that can be diatribes, but we're prisoners of the moment a lot of the time. And I think Riot's obligation to the history would have been a proper Hall of Fame or another content series that kind of continues to run at 2-week intervals. But I just don't think either of those are coming. So at some point you're waiting for Thorin to wax lyrical on a long form video about someone that he personally vibed with. There aren't too many other creators that are going to get that kind of audience. And so a lot of great stories go on the table. I wasn't listening that close to the broadcast, but I was obviously watching the TL series, and I'm not sure how much attention was brought to finally making it to Worlds for the first time, which is a story really close to my heart, because I remember him debuting as a 17-year-old kid, and I was in the makeup room, and I would always just say hello to the players just to see if anyone spoke English, and usually just wait to see how they declined. And then just started talking to me in conversational English, and I was like, what the fuck? Why does this guy speak such good English? And found the story of him growing up outside of Korea and speaking English when he was young, and saw his ups and downs on Jin Air, mostly downs, and a disappointment on KT, and then finally seeing him kind of achieve his goals now. And that story not being told is expected, but sad, I guess, for me at least in particular.
Emily, I have a question for you. I wanted to skew this episode more towards a lot of playoffs talk.
Sorry.
And I was wondering if there was any historical context you wanted to provide to the state that we find ourselves in this playoffs.
What do you mean?
Are there any storylines that you think that require historical context?
There are so many. I feel like I would.
What's your favorite one right now? What's at the top of your mind, Emily? Let's talk about it.
Let's see. is actually one of them because I've also followed him for a really long time. I think the idea, the two storylines that I think have been covered significantly and will continue to be covered are definitely Impact and Core taking this entire team. I think Bwipo did a really good job of introducing literally his own storylines. For example, I had no idea, and I was really happy to talk to him about this, how much Hylissang meant to him, right? That was a really cool moment to watch him talk about how much Hylissang's presence helped him and how well they clicked, and how going back to the LEC studio is actually going to be a really big deal for him, right? Which I think a lot of people who have maybe only seen him on TL and then as a content creator and kind of as this goofy guy or this harsh guy, going back to his original home of the LEC and seeing how much it's changed and playing on that stage again, I think is going to be really, really big. And that's kind of a huge personal story that I wouldn't have even known about if I hadn't gotten the chance to talk to him yesterday, right? So I think that's a really cool story that people should also be paying attention to. I mean, there are a lot, but like that one really hit me when I got to talk to him about it yesterday, because it's something that in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, well, of course he's going back to Europe, like that makes sense. But that undercuts, like, saying that is such a disservice to like what it's actually going to mean, or like what it's going to feel like for him to be able to stand on that stage again, right? Having had so much time pass and so much change with him and the teams he's been on, and change within the LEC since he was there last. I think that kind of moment can be really powerful.
Yeah. No, I really do appreciate that as well. Cubby, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to chime in on any of this.
No, I mean, I very much agree with Chris. And I had a similar tweet about how it's cool to see like how both Quad and Unti were able to now go to Worlds after kind of being journeymen over in LCK, and what it means to them. Because I remember Unti's reaction when he won his first trophy in spring, and then going to MSI, and now to see him go to Worlds, and also Quad reacting to that was really cool. Some of that's also followed that week quite a bit. So.
Yeah. I mean, with it was Quad's birthday yesterday. I know they picked up on the broadcast, and we went for a steak dinner, and I was talking to him, and one thing I asked him is like, hey, like, what were you doing for your birthday a year ago? He's like, oh, I was hanging out with a friend, and it was a really quiet affair, and especially for imports, and obviously, Impact and Core, even though they're LCS legends or imports, the stories of like, pick arbitrary time sometime before they went to North America, and then the present moment, and like Quad spoke almost no English a year ago, had like flamed out after having a year and a half retirement from his LCK starting time on Nongshim, and probably thought his career was over and was going to be a streamer, and then a year later he's speaking English among Westerners in North America, qualifying for Worlds. Like these stories are so rich, and I feel bad that I don't do a greater job sharing them, and that's why it's an impossibly high bar when you go team side. Like you create your own narratives as a caster, but then you like are actually a part of the building of some young man or young woman's day-to-day life, and it's very different on the team side. So I think that's why you always get like the passive-aggressive comments from like the media figures that go team side, like like for example, like Spawn, like championing like should have been player of the series and things like that. Is like they also see all the work that gets to the final product, and then how that's viewed by the broadcast team through the narrative, and like what they see versus what's on the replay or what's not, like is like codified for most people. But then if you're like on the team side, you're like, oh, that's a cool story, but I wish it was this story. That doesn't mean it was better. It just means you wish it was that story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
for what
like
worth, I voted in like
I didn't have a ballot. I also voted MT, and I opened up the ballot to see who actually voted MT, because I thought MT was robbed.
One of the things I miss about the early days of LCS was the level of interaction that I got to have backstage with players and teams, especially like 2013, 2014. Everybody would just kind of be hanging out, and I could even like stop by the team rooms and like talk to people. And one of the things that I really like to do in those moments is go talk to people. So like with the coach situation where like, Spawn saying stuff about Umpty or whatever, it would be really nice because you could go have these conversations with coaches and people and be like, yeah, here's like something interesting that, I don't mind you bringing up, which is this player's been staying up every night until midnight to try to like get themselves into a better place, or, this person like went through a lot last year, and that conversation has been talked about too much. So you can maybe ask them a question about like, if what it was like transitioning teams, and maybe they'll have something to say. And I do feel like it's obviously natural that media and everybody kind of get more isolated and insulated from each other, but there were just a lot of really interesting behind the scenes stories that like I don't have those conversations as much as I used to because I'm just not in physical proximity to people as much anymore. I don't know, Emily, do you even get a chance on the broadcast to talk to a lot of the people behind the scenes, or I assume you're kind of just like going because you guys are still recording content, for other things even during the broadcast, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, the coolest thing, like yesterday, again, for example, first of all, Pros has been great, because it was weird. It was initially weird, I will say, and I've said this publicly before, going from a journalist where I did have, even as a freelancer, and I don't know if it's just because I was a pain in the ass and I'm very stubborn about not going away, but I usually got a lot of really good interviews. And going to broadcast side where I was like, wait, I have less access to the players now than I did before. That's quite strange to me. And I feel like that's changed a lot since we started doing it. Started with like longer form interviews on the lounge, and then it's transitioned into like having players actually just be on broadcast for a day. Like I felt it was really cool to talk to Core behind the scenes about a lot of stuff yesterday in an environment that's not an interview, right? Like we're just sitting, we're hanging out, we're talking League. One of my favorite things to do in interviews was actually just when I was off camera, which I know no one reads anymore, but most of my interviews were written for a really long time. I would just ask about the game itself as like my first few questions. Like I wouldn't even go in order of what I was talking about because I just wanted to talk to the players about the game. And so bringing them on to broadcast behind the scenes has actually been really beneficial for that. But when I first joined, it felt like there was a larger degree of separation actually than when I had been a journalist. And like, I don't know, like Papasmithy, like this is kind of a bait question because I kind of knew he was going to agree with me. But like it's really frustrating for me just because like I'd love to like write a book on this, right? Like just a giant encyclopedia on players and like put them in context, but I know no one reads. So I guess maybe like a YouTube series would be the way, but like I feel like it's still such a sport with like an amazing history, and I want to canonize it in a way.
Well, and shout out Pastry Time for I think he created the garage. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, him and Manny, who's also works behind the scenes for these guys.
Yep.
And yeah, that's their new YouTube channel. The Esports Garage is their new brand. Yeah. They're trying to do esports history stuff. So you can go check that out. Hey, thanks so much, Emily.
Okay. Let me ask her one question. What's your favorite League of Legends article, Emily? Not the one that you've written, but one that you've read.
There are two.
Two's fine.
One was a larger thing on Korean League of Legends. They're both by the same author. One was a larger thing on Korean Legends by a young man named Rally Jaffa.
I knew you were going to bring up Rally Jaffa. He also did my favorite article.
My favorite League of Legends writer ever.
It's great.
If you have not read his work, you just should. He has like just an insane way with words. He has so much empathy for the players. He's amazing. He's a writer that I wish I could be like half as good as. And I saw him at a wedding
last year.
How's he doing? Is he doing
He's
well?
Doing well.
I haven't talked to him in forever. I hope he is like. Yeah, I hope he's doing really well. I love him. I haven't talked to him since I saw him in 2018.
Please tell me your favorite one is the Sushion one.
Actually, that one is so good though. I actually really loved, and it's about a player that we actually already brought up. It's a lesser known article on Umti actually, and I love when he wrote it for Upcomer, I think, and I love when I not only learn so much about a player that I've already followed and like think I know about, but then also this idea that he keeps. It was when he was on Breon, and that team was really awful.
Yeah.
And he keeps trying. Like it's basically an article about like how this player who even when back in the day when he came onto the scene, when he was supposed to be this breakout star, he goes to KT, he's learning from Score. It doesn't work for whatever reason, right? I love articles that focus on that because I feel like we're much more likely to lionize players who have achievements, right? But there are so many other players who just are so stubborn and keep trying. And when I did because I try to do some, obviously the time is so short, but in like the draw my lives that I do, I try to include stuff like this, and I included like so much from Rowley's article on that. But yeah, I don't even know how many people have read his articles, but he is the by far and away, in my opinion, the best writer that League of Legends has ever had.
Yeah, I'll add one just because I know Travis will want to move on. But he wrote an article, same guy, Rally Jaffa, on Sushion, which is the local sushi restaurant that's kind of like right in between 4 gaming houses in a suburb of Korea. And it was just a normal, good sushi restaurant that Gorilla, the former supporter of Rock Tigers, Longzhu, and many other teams, would go to, and he would bring all of his pro player friends there, to the point where the owner started to like watch Gorilla's games, and then all of the players would sign, and just like the K-pop stars, they would put their signatures up on the wall. And after reading the article, I finally got to go there. Who knows what year that would have been, 2018, 2019. And sat there, and the proprietor of the restaurant recognized me, and I signed, and my signature was on the wall amongst all the players. And I was like, I shouldn't be here, but it's a very beautiful article about like how a culture can develop from one pro player bringing over their friends to now there being like this like little rallying cry for League of Legends fandom. So yeah, great
Yeah,
article.
but how does it compare to Sugarfish?
It was way better, way better.
Hard to
Sushi in
believe.
LA is trash. So
Big
what can
fan,
you
big
do?
fan of Sugarfish. That's my way of moving on the conversation. I know I could listen to you guys wax philosophically all day, and maybe we'll do that in the off season for one of our more long episodes, or as we have a more empty week. But Emily, I do really appreciate you calling in. Anything you want to shout out?
Shout out whenever I get to sit down with Papasmithy on video and we argue about Smeb versus Marin.
Ooh.
No,
Sounds great.
that's a joke because we would argue about that previously. I do a show called Making the Rounds with Kelsey. You can check it out. I'm also on the LCS broadcast. I'm trying to get better at casting. My cast is pretty mid right now, but hopefully it'll improve. And thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
Emily.
calling in, and we'll
Thanks,
catch you next time.
Emily.
All right, we're gonna take another quick break. Shout out to Adrian over on YouTube, who just became just super chatted $10 and said, I can't win in prize picks, so I'll support your channel. Maybe it's because I'm always trying to 9x my money every time. Well, Adrian, thank you for mentioning the show sponsor Prize Picks. And Adrian, have you checked out the Prize Picks channel on our Discord? So for those that are unfamiliar with Prize Picks, you can play Prize Picks every week by going in and making a lineup of your favorite players, picking if you think they'll get more or less kills or assists or any of those types of things in their lineup over the course of the weekend. It gives you some options. You'll get to choose those. Those usually go up about 24 hours before the match happens. So for those of you that are trying to do it maybe right now or whatever, please check back later. You'll be able to do that. Or you could go and you could play Prize Picks maybe with some of the other regions that are happening around the world or in traditional sports as well. They have all sorts of different stuff. And when you do sign up, please use the link that we have in either chat or in the description of the YouTube video or the podcast. That really helps us out. Or you can use code Travis when you sign up. When you do, you'll get a sign-up bonus. I've mentioned it previously on other episodes, but it's a pretty cool offer that they have going on there, where after your first bet, you get some. After you get your first play, you get some Prize Picks credit. But you can also check out the Discord chat that we have, the channel for Prize Picks. There's all sorts of cool conversation that is happening in there, where people are sharing their lineups and their picks for the week, and you can see who's winning their Prize Picks matches and who's losing, and just sort of get an idea. And maybe Adrian, if you go in there, you'll get some advice from some of the other folks who've been doing it pretty well. I know King Manchi said earlier that they play every week. Unfortunately, they had a lineup that did not go so well, mostly because it looked like they were really on the side of C9 against FlyQuest, and JoJo and Vulcan did not pull through. Busio, Bwippo, Inspired, and Quad overperformed this person's expectations, and so King Manchi unfortunately did not win the prize pick, but it did say that they are positive $500 over the course of the split, I believe. So
That's pretty
shout out
good.
to King Manchi, but shout out also to Prize Picks for sponsoring us. When you do go sign up, it is the single best way to support the channel right now, especially as we're trying to get over to Worlds, exclusively if you use code Travis or the link. That way they know that we sent you. So thanks so much to Prize Picks for sponsoring the episode. Really appreciate their support of the show. All right, let's get into the next call.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. While Cubby's grabbing the next caller, ShadowsLightly, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Adrian, thank you as well for the membership. Thank you to the Noblet for 50 months. PP Doc gifted a sub to Pastry Time. I'm sure he will immortalize that in the Esports Garage, that moment of getting that gifted sub. All right, we got our next caller here. Oh, speaking of ShadowsLightly, I believe I recognize the thumbnail or the profile picture. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Oak Park, Illinois.
Illinois.
Ooh.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to talk about FLYC because I actually think FlyQuest NZXT, or the Challengers team, is going to be the guest team in 2025. I think at least 4 or 3 of those 5 players are going to be the ones in the guest team, and I expect it to be bought by a creator org. I had 3 orgs in mind. One is obviously Disguised, because they're already in NACL. 2 is Moist Esports. I think it would make Shopify a very, very happy esports sponsor if MXS and Shopify Rebellion were in the league. And then the third possibility is Mr. Beast makes Beast Mode Esports. And Beast Mode Esports, fields that Fly NZXT roster.
So first off, maybe we can get some context from Cubby and Papasmithy, because when I heard FlyQuest Challengers, I thought that was their collab with the News and Dia movie, but I guess this is actually a team that you operate.
Go ahead, Cubby. Give me some facts. What's going on here?
So I mean, these guys won in spring. Right now, they need to win 2 best of 5s to make it to the Tier 2 Americas tournament. They lost a really competitive best of series to Fear X Starforge. But some of the players they have in this roster are really strong, and obviously, Masu and Quad ended up being on that team at some point. Right now, Surdy is on the team, which a lot of people consider to be the next guy up. Shaden's someone that's been in my most valuable prospect ballot for the last 2 splits and even beforehand. The Chime is really good still. Sajad has been really promising for year 1 with Bradley stepping in for Quad. So, in terms of how the guest slot's going to work, I mean, I'm not sure, but I guess the caller's saying that you just want to take the team of 5, or the majority of it.
Well, I think the majority of it. I think Chime probably won't end up going because he's got to go buy his green book and shit, because I know he's planning on going to law school. So I would be surprised if he stayed on the roster. And so I think someone from, the 2 teams that are gone, like, I would not be surprised if Ole ended up being on the roster. Sajed might also be changed out by the org that buys them. I hope he stays, because I really think Lens or Mobility really deserve a Challengers team spot, but it is possible that Sajed wouldn't be fielded.
Yeah, so to explain some of the intricacies, and not all of this is public, and honestly, I don't actually know all the specifics, but in the future, in the end of 2025, there will be this promotion possibility. Now, I'm not expecting there to be a sister team scenario, so I would guess FlyC and TLC, if both of us from the league won't be able to be promoted. But I understand the general point of whatever team makes it through, whether it's whatever name it's under, should it be the core of FLYC or FlyQuest NZXT. I think that this is a conversation that's got a bit more interesting recently with the success of MDK. in Europe. The idea of promoting more than just one or two players, like actually promoting a core that has experience with each other and kind of seeing how that plays out rather than just trying to cherry pick Academy All-Stars like COG did at the start of 2022. I think there's definitely some interesting nuances on both sides. Obviously, I'm super biased. I would love to see the players make it through. There's no financial incentives really there or anything on our side, so there's no selling the spot or kind of scenarios like that. I think we're past those days when it comes to North American League of Legends coming up to 2025.
David is waiting to give you money.
Yeah, I don't want to reject money, but I don't think there's any money out there. So at the end of the day, I would love to see them stay together as a core, and I would love to see more experiments. Mad Lions making it to Worlds again with a core of largely promoted players from one org is a really cool story, and we very rarely get to see those sort of stories play out. It's usually one person is cherry-picked promoted. I mean, the one for me, and maybe Cubby would have paid attention, like the Damwon Kia Challengers roster of a couple of years ago, that would have been Thanatos now on C9, Lucid, who's actually promoted onto Damwon Kia, Paul Bay, who's a bit lost in ELO Hell and the Bro organization somewhere, Rahel, who's over on SK Gaming as they're starting AD now, and I guess Bible, who's like around the scene as well. Like there's like we'll never see those like really top one challengers teams playing against the next tier of teams. They played against them in scrims, no doubt, but they'll never do it in public. So I actually like where the heart of where the caller is at in terms of like group promotions would be a fun way to do things. And look, if it is say DSG promoted, just because I would imagine that Riot wants to like reward Toast for his like how long he stayed with the scene in this 1 year where it's going to be like a Riot arbitrarily chosen team. I actually wonder if they'll force a 3 out of 5 rule. They don't have to this year, but I do wonder because like Toast is super loyal, so I would imagine that he probably would promote a core of his own players to LCS.
I do think it's interesting because like I can argue for like being pro cores as well. Like looking at our league with Blue Water, so if you do promote in the NICL, you are required to keep 3 players in the roster, including subs. They kept 3 of their starters, and they've been really like outkicking their coverage in terms of what the expectations were and how well that team's performing. I do think that staff like deserves credit as well as the team, as they just made top 5, and they were a team that I had ranked 10th going into the season. I didn't have a lot of expectation for, and a lot of people were on board too. And I think that was the one takeaway from like NRG the last few years too, that I think a lot of LCS teams actually took away, like not making overhauls in terms of changes, but keeping some of the pieces that have worked together and do have experience and just like adjusting it to make sure that they can keep some of what they worked on and don't have to start from scratch. I think there is a lot of power to that. So, I think
FlyQuest has been one of the orgs most guilty of this. Like we've changed our entire roster multiple years running. I wasn't stewarding all those years, but I totally understand the frustration of feeling like you like threw the toys out the pram at the end of the year when you didn't get the result you wanted. So I mentioned at the start of the show, one of our goals was to make it to Worlds. The other one was to maintain a core of as many players as possible. Basically, any less than 3 out of 5 being maintained for 2026 would be considered a failure. So I think those things are important.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Surdy and Shaden would be a great start. They play well off each other in the top side, and they're both really good. I think you can also look at Yuji and Spyrax, who were in the FlyQuest camp, and now with Dragonsteel, like Yuji has been just absolutely fantastic both splits. I do think that there are cores that you can grab, and I think it will be interesting to see like what the org that does go in like ends up doing. I doubt that they would require a 3 out of 5 rule if they were involved in challengers, because the way that I think it's phrased is like, let's say Sentinels wanted to be a part of LCS, right? Like that would be something that they would consider. But I expect it to be Disguised, and if Disguised does go, I mean, I could see him sticking with Young and maybe Tenacity and some others that he has on the squad right now, but they did just get knocked out by Blue Water, and I think there are a couple better options available. So we'll have to see what they do, and if they end up, going for any pairings that we already see in lower leagues.
Yeah, I do want to ask one thing, because I know at Worlds, when it was in North America, Mr. Beast was like literally on broadcast saying he wants to be an LCS team. I'm just wondering if any of you three, why you guys think Disguise
I think he
would
said
get
he was
it rather
interested in a
than
league team. I don't think he said LCS. The rumor I've always heard with him is that he wanted to have like a team that would win worlds, and so he was like, I want like a LPL team or an LCK team. So it's hard to imagine him wanting to enter in like a promotional team role or whatever.
Okay,
I don't
that's
think
fair.
I don't think Mr. Beast is used to like shackles of any kind. So like, you know, if I'm gonna show up, I have to be the best in the world. It is. I'm sure where his like mind is at, and whether
Yeah.
that's residents and imports and regional leagues. Like, I don't think he concerns himself with things on that binary level. So I would imagine that he's not currently kind of considering getting in, but obviously would love to have him in the ecosystem.
Thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, a few things. Obviously, shout out NACL and our 2 collegiate teams in Dragonsteel and Winthrop. Hopefully, we can get a third when AOE probably gets relegated. Sorry to those players. Shout out to NZXT. Huge shout out, actually, because I bought one of their PCs back in like March or April of 2020. So that shit got me through COVID and got me very addicted to League because the PC was that strong. So thank you for that, NZXT. Also, shout out to my friend Ben over in Vietnam. Safe travels over to Appleton, and I will maybe possibly see you next year. And then shout out to you guys for, just having an awesome show that I get to listen to.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate all the shout outs. That's very generous of you. Thanks for being a YouTube member, and we'll catch you next time.
Of course. Bye.
All right. Off to the next caller. Shout out to 504 Caesar for the $10 super chat. We have Adrian, who became a member. Over on Twitch, we have the Dixie Cup, Fishy, Perchy 99, 1997 for 3 years. The Noblet. Oh, yeah, we got you earlier. Thanks, Noblet, for the 50 months. Let's see. Crayon, Brittle Bricks, Zachary, Shiny Froky at 75 months. That is crazy. Thank you, everybody, for being subscribers and for becoming members. It's very, very appreciated. It is really an incredible amount of support whenever people are able to just provide that kind of monthly membership. I do really appreciate it. Tzvi is here. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Tzvi, where are you calling from?
I'm from the Athens, Georgia area.
Athens, Georgia. What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, so I've got a couple of grievances to air out. First off, this weekend of LCS kind of sucked. The first match was a shit show. Well, yes, but just in general. Yeah, listen. I've been a C9 fan since Quantic, but I'm just talking about in general. Even if C9 won this weekend, the C9 FlyQuest match was pretty boring. The TL 100 Thieves match was pretty boring. And the Dig NRG match was an absolute shit show. And it's a perfect example for why the LCS needs to be gutted and reborn in this new system next year.
Oh,
if either listen.
So it's just so funny. You go for, you're like, this weekend had bad matches, and that's why we need to burn it all down and rebuild.
Travis, you're missing the best part.
Okay.
If either Dig or NRG were an LLA team or a team of Brazilians or whatever representative we end up getting next year, that match would be an absolute banger with a viewership as high as the finals.
Sorry, I'm not connecting here. So you're saying, can you
the Fiesta would be more supported by those audiences? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so my idea is that if there was a match that, even though it was sloppy as absolute heck, if either of the teams were one of these like LLA slots or a team primarily composed of Brazilians or whatever, there would be so much support behind that particular match that its viewing would rival the finals, even though it was an absolute shit show that should be a disgrace to the LCS.
Okay, so I'm trying to think through the logic here. Okay, so you watched a weekend of bad games. And you thought this?
I'd say it's more than a weekend of bad games.
Okay, whatever. You watch, but you're calling in about after the weekend of bad games, and you're like, the league needs to be reborn. so that
Yep.
when there are bad games, viewership is still high because it doesn't matter if the games are good or bad. That's what it sounds like your argument is.
I think that we have the opportunity to have teams that actually have like a proper storyline and a proper fan base behind them, and that if we had that this past weekend, it would have been so much more exciting to watch. Like,
do you not feel like there are storylines behind these teams? Like the Dignitas,
it's the same story we've been hearing since 3.5 months ago when the split feels like it started.
Right, but sorry, you're saying the storylines are the same as 3.5 months ago for the split? Like, wouldn't that be like a split long storyline? Like, when I watch a season of a show, I'm not like annoyed whenever the final 2 episodes are the same story that they had, 6 episodes before.
Sure, but are you not annoyed when there's no plot twist, when there's no like actual progression in the story, the rise and the fall of the plot and the conclusion? It just seems like everything is going almost perfectly scripted as it should. The
Really?
low teams, the low teams are
FlyQuest
playing.
winning is it like perfectly scripted? Really?
FlyQuest was an upset.
Have you seen
Dignitas?
FlyQuest?
I think everybody thought that team was going to perform way better. NRG has been like everybody's talking about how insane it is that they were so good last year and they suck this year. Like I hear you on the matches and playoffs to date have not been compelling. I will 100% agree with you there. But if you're just talking about the general storylines of the split, I actually think that there are some interesting conversations being had out of the results of these.
Like, let me help you understand.
Sure.
I've been watching League of Legends since before the LCS, and I have never been more bored watching League of Legends as I have been this split.
You know why?
Is it meta?
I can tell you why.
Well, part of it's the meta. The meta's not relatable to anything.
No, there's one reason why you're bored.
It's not because of C9. Like, well, my bad. C9 has been boring to watch, unfortunately, but so have most teams.
Baby, you were bored because of best of threes. Like, I know everyone's going to get pissed when I say this.
I can work with the caller here, and it does incorporate what you're saying, Travis, a bit, in that one of the problems when you have only 3 teams with a positive record and a scenario where the best team was undefeated, the second best team only lost to the first best team, the third best team only lost to the 2 teams above them. There were no upsets. Like, this was the first split where 15 All Pros from being the top 3 teams like made sense, because it's very hard to justify someone with a negative game and series win rate being All Pro. Not impossible, but hard to justify. And I kind of understand where you're coming from, caller, with the energy storyline since Worlds last year has kind of been the same of like, I'm ready to buy my ticket the moment they like convince me, but they haven't convinced me enough kind of vibe. And I guess the Dignitas storyline of like, will they wake up with this many vets who are really good has kind of been the same since the first day of the split. But do you have like a specific question that you want to ask, or are we just reacting to your like malaise you're feeling right now?
So my question, I guess, is if one of the teams in playoffs, like let's just pretend Dig was a top LLA team that gets brought in next year, how much more exciting is the playoffs narrative than it is right now?
I think
it's
a fuckload more. I think it's actually a fuckload more exciting, Travis. But
yeah,
I think what you're saying without saying it is that like the fandoms for Dignitas, Energy, and arguably other teams are too small for there to be shitfest. Like when Carmine Corp faced MDK for the first time this year, and it's Ibai's fans versus Kometa's fans, it's like an international incident. Like that's how big a deal it felt, even in the crowd, if you remember how it was at that first like LEC game. And to Travis, if it is, I don't know, who's it going to be? Like Rainbow 7 won LLA this split, right? Let's say it's Rainbow 7 in the LCS against, I don't know, Cloud9, like a team with a strong North American fan base. Like, there will definitely be a lot of viewership and intrigue for an international battle, especially when we get the Brazilian teams involved in playoffs. It'll be much louder. But look, at the end of the day, like, the American fan base theoretically is split across 8 teams, in the LCS this year. But theoretically, they all want us to beat the Mexican team. Like that's like how it works in international sports, right? So that's the idea of fusing kind of like regionalism or tribalism in whatever its form making things more compelling. Like, of course I agree. Like, that's definitely true.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I might be aligned with you guys here. My reason why I said I think it would be boring is because if we just name changed and also player changed, I think for the most part the storyline is not particularly compelling. But I do understand why there is like a more interesting aspect in that you have regional rivalry in that match. I think the thing that is more interesting to me about the changes they are making next year is the fact that, like, I don't know if it would be, I guess maybe by this point in time we would probably be in the, like, okay, the South Conference and Northern Conference are fighting each other. That I think is cool because you're seeing how these teams match up for the first time. But to like, if we don't want to talk about the best of three thing, we don't need to talk about it. I feel like Papasmithy cut me off very quickly to alter my conversation. But I will just say,
I was not a best of three single round robin guy. I didn't choose that.
I don't like it either.
I think for me, I think a lot of the reason why playoffs has taken a bit to pick up and why a lot of people are looking at these weekends feeling uninterested is because we have a lot of really good data. This is kind of the conundrum, is I think that the people who are hardcore League esports fans are often people who are very, like, data minded. They want to, they're all about who is the best at any one moment in time, and they want to figure out the best possible way to do that. The problem is that oftentimes that detracts from the intrigue and entertainment value of these other moments, like playoffs, where you get to have sort of the question of, okay, we don't have all the answers yet. How are these matches going to go? I think if we were next year, where we see teams that are facing each other for the first time playing against each other, or for the first time in maybe like 6 months or something, then we're back in a place of, okay, this is exciting. I think where we're at now is best of threes are better, I will agree, at determining, like, and extrapolating out the relative strength of all the teams. And that's what we saw in this 8 team split that we just saw, is like we have a pretty good understanding of where all the teams are at. And so a lot of the matches are going the way we kind of expect, and there's not been too much. The FlyQuest C9 stuff is an example of a place where it was exciting because like, these are teams that were really good. We knew they were really good, but we thought one was slightly better than the other, and then it went in a complete opposite direction. And so you're just going to see a lot less of this stuff in a world where you have best of threes. And I know that is, like, really frustrating to a lot of people. I know they're listening to me right now and they're like, yeah, this is why I have to stop listening to Hotline League, or why I can't respect Travis, is because he's sort of trying to hype things up for, like, an entertainment value versus, like, thinking about the competition aspect and why it's better for us to really play these matches so that we know who's the best. But, like, ultimately the viewership, I think, is an important component of the system, and it is reasons like this that I think best of threes diminish viewership.
I honestly, I still feel like if it was a double round robin of best of threes, like, it'd be stronger, because at least then you can say, like, okay, here's what happened last time. And the fact that, like, literally the very first week of the season we had FlyQuest TL, you can't build up to that matchup, because now it's like, okay, like, now we're going to wait to see them in playoffs, now we're going to wait to see them in playoffs, and the game decides who goes to finals, right? I feel like the single round robin kind of limited it more, and we did end up with this very tiered system. We spent the majority of the summer being like, okay, like, does anyone break TL, FlyQuest, and C9 going to Worlds? And the real question was, like, hey, who is better between FlyQuest and C9? Well, we got the answer in regular season, and we got a different answer in playoffs. I did find that interesting. I know the TL 100 Thieves match wasn't very close, but I found those games still very interesting. Yeah, the Energy Dig one, I found that interesting at a masochistic level, but that was kind of fun. So there's nothing wrong with that either. But I don't know. I feel like it will be more interesting with different teams involved, but we're still going to get match quality like that. And I feel like esports fans just don't like when games get down and dirty, at least in MOBAs, whereas, like, in CS, those are always my favorite matches. On, like, fighting games, those are always my favorite matches. I don't know what it is with, like, League being, like, this elitist game. I actually have never really gotten that from fans. I think very differently when it comes to that.
I'm trying to get back to the main point here because we've gone off on best of threes and now I'm arguing with people in Twitch chat.
I've got some viewership data pulled up if you want me to read it out real fast.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't like the annoying thing about viewership data is like Mark was like, and guys, we're doing these best of three things so that we can get, and we're not going to change I think it was like the schedule or something. I forget. He was like, we're not going to change very much because we want clean data for best of threes. And then they're like, and then we're going to slam a 3-week break in the middle of the split and do a bunch of weird shit. So I feel like the problem with you sharing this data is that no matter which way it goes, everybody's going to have an argument to dispute why it is or isn't best of threes. But sure, go ahead. Go for it.
So long story short, peak viewership for LLA in the past couple of months has been like 2.5 times their average viewers. For LCS, it's barely over double. And despite the LCS having a way larger like following and follower count, LLA is only at like 45% of peak viewers of what LCS is. And the LCS is like 5 times as many. So it's just having that influx of fans into the LCS or whatever the heck it's called next year is going to be exciting because unfortunately all those LLA people only have to go to the LCS or to the North America and the South America to watch their 2, possibly 3 or 4 teams compete now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of assumptions here that we're going to see LLA fans stick around, or that they'll watch this new iteration. I think there's a lot of if LCS got gutted tomorrow and I was told one of my teams would go compete in LEC and the other one will go compete in LPL, I'm doing some serious evaluations on whether or not I want to keep covering League Esports and or even watching League Esports. So like I think
that's ultimately why Riot changed obviously a lot of the initial rumors were there was going to be a condensed league, right, of like 10 teams, of which X are Brazilian, X are North American, maybe 1 Latin American team. That's like the VCT model. But if you look at the VCT, like they completely shuttered the local scene in Brazil and Latin America for Valorant. Like those scenes are like basically dead.
Yeah.
Like, it's like infertile ground level bad rather than like, oh, it could have been better. And so I think that's why ultimately Riot relented and went for a more hybrid system. But I agree with you, Travis, in that like if the thing you resonate with the most is your vibrant local scene, which is of course the CBLOL argument to why they don't like this new format, is that they're losing more Brazilian teams that they feel more connected to. I think you are more likely to just give up on League Esports than you are to necessarily force yourself into watching this like bastardized version of the thing you loved the year before,
Yeah, I also don't know. I'm right there with you, Papasmithy, and to that point, I also don't know if like the LLTA teams will be required to run LLA players or how many they'll have to, or if like over time they'll be.
I think my vibe is at least 2.
Yeah, and so like is 2 enough even? Like I just
I hope Jose Diodo's in the LCS next year,
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I wonder if the LLA thing sticks over time or if it's just like eventually Riot lifts those restrictions or somebody buys the LLA team or like I'm very fascinated to see how they try to build that out because it feels like the type of thing where they're like, oh yeah, we're giving you this, and then inevitably whenever the results occur where like LLA fans are like, this is not what I signed up for, and they leave, then they're like, okay, never mind, and then it just goes away. And then
I mean, look, we can never know what Riot's solving for, right? Like, is it regional consolidation so there's less spots at Worlds, more so than regional competition, more so than representation? Like, even I don't have that privileged information, right? But yes, that's possible, but I would hope and imagine they want to keep the potential for a viewership peak to come out of this. Like, the one thing I can guarantee next year is that our viewership peaks are going to be insane compared to 2024. They have to be, because at some point Loud is going to play against C9, and that's going to mean a lot of North American and Brazilian viewers are going to watch.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what we even count as viewership next year? You know, like
Viewership peaks. I'm not talking about average. I'm talking about peaks.
Yeah, but
There
are we
will
talking
be a
about
peak.
else? Are we talking about the North American League, the NLC, or
I'm talking about the international competition between the best North American conference and South American conference.
Right, but then in my mind, you can't compare that to, like, then it's a completely, you're comparing apples and oranges. I'm not trying to.
But why not? It's the same group of teams getting sent to Worlds.
Because we lost an international team spot to make that happen.
And you're creating a completely different product, right? Like, you can't compare Dignitas NRG viewership to, like, this international event that is happening between two entirely different regions.
If I've learned anything from Counter-Strike, every player is from the Americas. South, North, doesn't matter. We count it the same. Americas. I learned about it in Valorant. We love it.
Yeah. And hey, like, look, I am not. If next year the Americas League occurs and viewership is up on both South and Northern conferences, and we feel like things are thriving and sponsors are cool with it.
We don't care about those things. We care about viewership peaks. That's all we talk about now.
Is that really? Okay, interesting.
Whatever number they see is what we care about.
Yeah.
Which is the one that fits my agenda? Boom.
I need to adjust my NZXT deck because I'm getting ideas into how FlyQuest manages theirs. All right, thank you, Tzvi, for the call. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, first off, fuck you, chat, for thinking I'm a crazy psycho person at the beginning of my take. So many people in chat just flaming me for being a salty C9 fan. Shout out to the High School Esports League for being an awesome program for scholastic esports. Shout out to NZXT for having good computers. Shout out to Papasmithy for being the GOAT of the League of Legends esports scene in general. And shout out to Travis and Cubby for still putting up with my shit for 20 minutes.
Thanks so much for the call. You know, that was a spicy one and a good one. I appreciate it. And you got a lot of chat engagement, so it's very nice. Thanks for the call. Catch you next time.
Thank you.
All right.
Just went after chat and then shouted out a high school esports league.
Yeah, fuck you, chat, but shout out to this high school esports league.
This young man woke up on the wrong side of the bed and had lots of complicated emotions, and yet there was a through line there somewhere.
Dude, no, I wish we had more callers.
Big
like
energy
that.
gave him nightmares.
It's so funny because that caller are so many of the comments that I see or in chat or on YouTube videos or on Reddit where I'm like, okay, this person has this very strong opinion. They should call it a Hotline League. And then they're like, no, I'm very demure. I'm very whatever. Let's get into the next call. All right.
I like how you really cut your own attempt at, like, you know, staying hip with a kid short. That's nice.
I felt like the people who got it would get it, Cubby. All right. I didn't feel like I needed to continue to push it.
All right. I appreciate it. Next caller.
Shout out to Zachary GG, Shiny Froky, DFitch 97. So many things at 68 months. Very close. Bowen Chung, thank you for the 1,000 bits. And Mine Turtle, thank you for the 14 months. Over on YouTube, we got Power Surge becoming a member. Very much appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's doing this stuff. Really appreciate it. Treethan says Travis is a brat. I think Brat Girl Summer's over, is my understanding. Shout out, by the way, to the new Sabrina Carpenter album. I'm still trying to decide how I feel about it. We have not Parkmom here. Not Parkmom. Where are you calling from?
Calling from Clayton, Wisconsin.
From Wisconsin?
Yep.
Okay. What is the weather like in Clayton, Wisconsin right now?
We actually had a big rainstorm recently, a lot of power outage. I luckily have been able to get my power back on just for this.
Okay. Well, that's really good. Yeah, I'm looking at news coverage right now, and wow, yeah, there's not a lot of coverage of this. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
I had two questions, but Cubby said he could leave it up to me. Wanted to ask Papasmithy. We got a lot of negativity around the LCS, NA esports in general. I wanted to hear some positives, what NA esports and or LCS has to offer the League of Legends scene.
Yeah, Parker, I think this year has done a pretty good job of cutting through some of the more negative narratives. You know, I came to the LCS at the end of 2019, and definitely 2020, the end of 2023 was, I don't know, it's like a misery spiral, I feel like, of people not getting what they wanted out of North American esports in general, and specifically the LCS, and COVID didn't help. I think this year there's been some vibrancy, and I think the thing that I've enjoyed the most, we didn't get a chance to talk about it with Emily, but I'm sure everybody on this call kind of sees it, is that I think that everybody's in the same boat, rowing in the same direction for the first time in the LCS in terms of like trying to make something of where the LCS is in 2024 rather than like lamenting where it didn't get to. I think that I like the fact there's a lot of cross-team content, you know, like pros actually would have been tricky a few years ago just because the idea of like there being 3 teams players like all mingling and theoretically like plotting or whatever, I don't know what they would have ascribed.
Dude, the players would have just been like, nah, I don't want to. And then the GMs would have been like, sorry, Riot, our players don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, there would have been some excuse, and I think the amount of excuses have been cut down, and I think in general everyone's like, okay, shit here is not that great, but it's not that bad either. Let's make the most of it. And I think that's an energy I feel at the org level. Again, FlyQuest is a very different org than 100 Thieves, and our priorities are very different. But our relationship with Riot, like, you know, I've been working with Riot on the team side for 5 years, and definitely how Riot looked at orgs with kind of disdain 5 years ago, and now I like, we hear what you're saying, let's try and make that better, or let's try and improve that. Like, it's just like I honestly think it's a great ecosystem to be a part of, and I'm no longer I guess one thing that was always healthy about mindset is I'm not a prisoner of like, it had to get to this amazing level and we squandered it when we could have gotten there based on where we were in 2018, therefore fuck everything, is like kind of a mindset you hear a lot on the org side. And I'm always like, it's amazing that we're here. Like, it's amazing that this game that, you know, MOBA is like the last game that should ever catch on in a global sense, and the fact that it like became this amazing huge thing and gave me 10 years I would never trade for anything is amazing. And so I'm always like, okay, this is where we're at, how can I make the most of it? And I think there's still a lot left to give, and there's a lot of great people who are still in the space trying to carve out something. And for the people whose shadows are just too scary or too tall and they can't move past, I do think that it's worth looking around and seeing a lot of genuine people trying to build things after the crash, if you know what I mean, in some ways. Then that's what I appreciate. I think there's a lot of glass half full people that are enjoying their lives in 2024 that struggled a bit to do that in 2020 to 2023.
You know, I know that this question was exclusively asked to Papasmithy, but I would also like to share. One of the things that frustrates me a lot is the conversation that I see online from haters who suggest that LCS is dead. And I definitely will agree that viewership has gone down, and there are a lot of decisions that led to that I've been vocal and critical about. But I really dispute the idea that it is dead. Like, the league still has a tremendous amount of viewership when compared to similar products and offerings. And especially whenever, and I think LoL esports as a whole is still in a very good, healthy place. Maybe not from a financial situation, which is, I think, what Riot is trying to adjust from.
Every international tournament breaks a record, it feels like, at this point.
Exactly. Like, from a viewership perspective, I think it is really good. And I think the suggestion that this cannot, you know, you just hear these people say like, oh yeah, nobody plays League anymore in North America. And I'm like, okay, based off of what? You know, it's just not, there's this level of doomerism where people just put stuff out there that's like, oh yeah, it's dead and nobody plays League and everything's gone forever. And I'm like, no, I don't think that that's the case. Like, I remember EU LCS took a really big dip back in maybe like right before they became LEC. And then they were able to rebrand, create this new product, and it skyrocketed. And I have belief that the future of the LCS is not, and North American League, I guess, is not like written in stone. It is not a thing where this is 100% going to go away. I think there's a chance it could, like, if viewership continues to diminish, if next year's big experiment flops, and if sponsors don't like it and Riot needs to keep like tightening the belt, then yeah, we're all going to have to figure out what esport we want to watch going forward, or how we want to spend our time or what we're going to do for work. But I really believe that there's still a huge base of passionate people that tune in to shows like this and care about this, and there are sponsors and brands that see that, and that given time, there are a lot of things that can bring us into a good spot, the same way that I've seen this happen in other leagues. Viewership is not a constant in terms of the trend up or down, and I think there's a lot of potential for this to swing back up, especially given, quite frankly, how far we've fallen. You know there are a lot of people out there that have watched League Esports in the past, and if you give them good reasons, they might. I also think there's trailing indicators here where, like, the league is in a better place than it has for the last couple of years, but viewership is down. I think there was a time where viewership was really high, where the league was in and the product was in the worst place it had been in for years. So I think it takes a while for these things to adjust, and I'm hopeful for next year.
Yeah, it's nice that I mean, I've talked about like the pendulum on here before. I do feel like gameplay for NA it's like helped, but also the broadcast has had a lot of wins. And I mean, in a year where like from the outside looking in, I mean there are less days for broadcast, there are less teams, and I guarantee you, like, there are just less resources. The fact that, you know, everyone feels like they're more on board with the product that's being put out, I feel like that is a big win for the people behind the scenes, and a big win for the league, hopefully moving forward. So I think everything you guys said is right, but I just kind of chip in. Like, this is the year where, like, they're giving the broadcast, like, it has less resources, and yet I think it's experiencing a lot more success. And I think that really speaks to all the work that they're doing. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Parkmom, for the call. Anything you want to add here before I give you your shoutouts?
No, I just think that in general, NA esports as a whole is probably one of the most dominating regions across titles as a whole. You can look at how many great players come from North America and play different kind of genres of games, and I don't think that's talked enough within different scenes. So I think it's always just League that we're always seeing as the clown region at times.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I have a few. Shout out NZXT, been playing the new Tarkov wipe. It's been making my life so much better. Shout out Papasmithy. Shout out that great drink you're drinking right now. Shout out the chair you're sitting in as well. Shout out Numi, Miss Harvey, FlyQuest, Flight Check, and Kendrick.
And NZXT. Thanks so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Not Parkmom got all the talking points. Weird like that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take one quick break, and then we're going to get into our last call. Listen, everybody. We're doing live Hotline League. Kia is sponsoring it. Shout out to Kia for sponsoring this show, but also shout out to Kia for making live Hotline League happen. I was holding that announcement because I thought that we would announce it here, and then I looked at
Mark spoiled it for you.
The lolesports.com webpage and looked at the 2024 LCS Championship Primer, and there we were. My name. Right there, Hotline League. So on there's 2 days here. So on Friday, I will be doing some interviews with fans and community members on the stage from 10 to 11. If you go on Friday to FanFest, please go check that out. Then from 11 to 12, there is a chat that I'll be having with some Riot devs. So there's programming on both days. You can come to the stage. I think we'll probably be broadcasting the Friday stuff on the channel as well. But then on Saturday, live Hotline League is happening 10 to 12. It's been over a year since we've done this. It'll be Cubby's first one. Hopefully he doesn't fuck it up. And then
Thanks, Travis.
it's gonna be really fun. We'll be joined by a bunch of guests and friends and callers. You have a chance to join us live on stage and be part of the show. This will also be broadcast on stream, so please tune in. This is cool. The pre-show, the live coverage. It will be really good, and we'll have some friends there as well. So it's just gonna be awesome. Listen, I was not sure we would ever get to do another one of these. All right, I know we were just talking about doomerism and all that stuff, but it's just. But even the sponsors that are around, they're all kind of tightening their wallets a little bit more too, and so it's been a bit. And I'm really, really thankful that Kia was able to make this happen. It will be at FanFest. Again, please come out to the 2024 LCS Championships Friday and Saturday. You can see me on stage 10 to 12 Hotline League on Saturday, and then please tune in live. If you do, it's the type of thing that helps make sure that maybe we can do this again next year if Kia really likes it. And so tuning in live, even catching the VOD afterwards. I know it's kind of weird because we sometimes talk about the things that happened before the games happened, and then the VOD happens afterwards. But it's always a good time. So I think there's still a lot of entertainment to be had afterwards. So thank you so much, Kia, for making that happen. They will also have you can see in person the Kia K4. It'll be right next to me, right next to the stage. I've seen the mock-ups, so you can go take a look at it. They also have some other activations. You can participate in a Kia Locker Challenge, where you can win one of several prizes, including NRG Kia and Cloud9 jerseys. And they're doing some really cool stuff. So thanks so much to Kia for making Hotline League Live happen. Please check us next week. That is next week, which is crazy to think about. When I say that sentence, that Cubby and I next week are going to be doing this. That's when finals are. So thanks everybody for tuning into that preemptively. And thanks to Kia for sponsoring the show.
Well, within 2 weeks, but by
it's next
LCS
week.
break standards next week. Yes.
I mean, look, it is next week. There's no way to dispute it.
All right, well, yeah.
I feel like if it's more than 10 days away, I don't know. This is too confusing.
Two Saturdays.
Well, you guys are crazy.
It's after a national holiday.
It's Monday.
Yes. What happens next week? Next week is finals. This week are the semis or winner losers, whatever. So the other part of the format. And then next week is finals and championships.
You're not wrong.
We're going to summon Mark Z if we continue on this week discussion. Yeah. So let's
Mark would tell you that this is happening this week. He'd be like, no. Championships are this week, because he deletes 1 week from any equation. He starts at a -1 week situation. So
that's like some Korean aid shit right there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. He's going to listen to this and he's going to send me angry messages. He always does. All right. We're off to get the last caller. Thank you to Mind Turtle for the Prime, Pandarus for the 9 months, Poison Ivy, and Power Surge for becoming YouTube members. Hey, over on Twitch, really quickly, do me a favor if you're watching live. Move your cursor over the screen. There, a little purple crown will pop up. Click that purple crown. If it tells you that you have a free sub available, please send it over here, and to no one else. They don't love you like I do. Our next caller's here. Caller, what's your name?
I think about Ren.
What's that?
Ren, R-E-N.
Ren, where are you calling from?
Syracuse, New York, baby.
Syracuse, New York. What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right. So my take is that as LCS fans, we should hope that the third team to qualify is actually 100 Thieves. Not Cloud9, not Dig, etc., but our young guns, Sniper, Tomo, Ayla, and Quad definitely need some more experience.
But close.
Quid. Ah, my bad.
Quad's already there. That's all right, you know?
Yeah. My other goat, Quad and Quid, but I think the 100 Thieves core definitely needs the experience, and the best way to get experience, Worlds, baby.
All right. And any additional arguments for this? Or is this just a passionate plea?
I mean, I'd ask, how are they getting there, to the caller?
I just want to hear
like
from
that's more contentious.
Well, let's start with any other reasoning for why they deserve it more than anyone else, and then let's go for how's it going to happen, Ren?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my biggest reasoning is that the other possible option would be Cloud9, right? And I just don't care about the Cloud9 core anymore. After this last week's game, after the whole split, it feels like they've just kind of mentally checked out, boomed, and I don't care. I want to see
one match made you lose them. They had such a good. They had such a good.
Are you a C9 fan?
Yeah, I'm.
You're out after one match.
I've been like checked out for like half the split, dude. Like,
wait, why? They've been so good half the split.
I don't know. I just mentally, I know I should still like them because they're winning, but my heart just keeps going towards Team Liquid. And
You got
the team
ick?
winning more. All right.
I swear to God, I've never been a Fairweather fan before, right? But this TL squad is like different. I don't know. It's like the way APA looks at me on Twitter. I just get butterflies. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds
So
like
is it a we don't have enough young North American talent? Those people do. I want them to do well. Like, is that the like defining line here? Because I don't really know why your eyes would wander from C9 to TL via 100. Like, I don't really get it.
I don't got a good answer for you. It's just my heart is going in a
Vibes.
different direction.
this guy would be still a C9 fan if we were doing best of ones. Anyway,
Dude,
okay, so how are they gonna get there? You want this to happen? How's it gonna happen?
Right. It's from the old counter EG playbook where you just camp JoJo. You have River sit in his lane and make sure he doesn't get to play the game, and then we just go from there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
You're just gonna tilt them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw from this weekend that's a valid playbook. They seem to be mentally not as well.
Okay. It's hard for me to figure out where to go with this because I feel like this is mostly all vibes on why you want
I mean,
Thieves to go through
this guy, like 100 Thieves, is like his Kamala joining the race, and it's just all about the vibes now, you know.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The vibes are good.
that's how I'm gonna explain this. Vibes are good.
Okay. Here. Let's go with this. I would enjoy seeing 100 Thieves make it to Worlds because I really like their lineup. I think it would be exciting to see a lot of these players compete. I've been a fan of River since he showed up in the LCS, and what I've seen him do as a player has been exciting. I am not saying that means I want them over C9, but I'm just saying it's not a thing where I would feel great amounts of disappointment if they made it through. I find it very unlikely that they will make it to Worlds, but I do think that it would really fly in the face of our previous caller who was like, oh, playoffs have been boring. I've been checked out the split, blah, blah, blah. Because it would be a really big upset if 100 Thieves throws C9 out.
I mean, I would like to start here because I think some of the callers' point as to why they want to see 100 Thieves is that it is a younger core and a younger team. So, like, we can ask Chris, like, Papasmithy, what kind of impact did you see on Masu and Busio going to MSI this past split?
Yeah, I think the caller, I think, is drawn to the fact that 4 out of 500 Thieves players haven't played at Worlds. It's just haven't gone international. It's literally just River. And I guess it was play-ins on Golden Guardians, and then previously it was PCS who made it to the main stage. I do think that international events are super, super formative for young players. Like, I think that you really need to get that. MSI is like really true of this, but I think Worlds would be increasingly true. Like, consider that Worlds has 4 less teams, and the teams being cut are like the teams that are now like in EMEA Masters and things like that. So it's like minor region teams that are being cut. You just end up against the murder's row of the best players in the world at your role, and the team game is hard. The laning phase is hard. Like, I think it is how you come back from your first international tournament, if you come from North America, really is like a force multiplier for your trajectory. Like, the clearest example is how APA took, TL getting wrecked, like fucking wrecked at Worlds 2023, and then turned that into kind of like the core of the work ethos that he already had, but he tapped in and was so constructive around and became the player that he is this year. I'm really proud of how much better we were at EWC, even though it was a 2-1 loss to G2, compared to MSI, where obviously we fell very, very short of our potential. And I do think that for more players, especially someone as young and chirpy as Sniper, getting the chance to go internationally and get slapped around, I do think that the region would be better for having those 4 players come back and have to apply their wares either on 100 Thieves next year or wherever they end up. So I do see the attraction, because I think the caller does have some of that old toys, scenario of like C9 has players other than Thanatos that have made it to Worlds before. Therefore, I want to see 4 new players go to Worlds from North America. I see that angle, because he's not saying that I think 100 Thieves is going to win. He's saying I want 100 Thieves to win, which is different.
I mean, honestly, I could flip it and be like, I kind of want to see what happens if C9 does go there, because, I mean, JoJo and Berserker for me, like, I can't consider those guys old toys, right? And I would want to see what happens. Like, I feel like they haven't played as well this year as what was expected of them. So what happens if they do go face Murderer's Row? Like, are they able to get back into form? And then, hey, does C9 like actually have a chance to do some damage at Worlds? And I feel like before we saw C9 play this weekend, I saw some threads being like, hey, can we have 2 NA teams maybe push to quarterfinals? If C9 gets a good draw, can they push to quarters? I think the expectation right now for TL, it's pretty crazy to say, but the expectation feels like it's quarters for them, which is a lot, right? But I think given the play that they've put out and what energy did last year, fans feel that way. So I still think C9's going. I would love to see Sniper go international and I actually learn. I feel like it would be really good for him. And everyone behind the scenes at 100 Thieves has said that, hey, like, he has learned a lot this year. Like, you know, he's trying his best, and ultimately going to an event like that, like, yeah, it is probably going to open your eyes to what this game is and how it's played at the highest level, where you don't, it's not like, I kind of like to compare League to fighting it sometimes. Like, you sometimes have to go get punched in the face by Chovy to feel like what it actually is like to play against Chovy, right? So I think that something like that could help, but I still think that C9 is the stronger team to send. And honestly, I'm kind of hopeful that C9 are able to go, because I want to see how they level up. I feel like they've yet to reach their expectation. They played a lot better this summer, but I think that series against FlyQuest, I mean, I thought that was a very entertaining 4 games, but I thought they got beaten all 4 games, quite frankly. And I really didn't like their meta read, but also I think some of their play later on, like, they were getting out team fought. So can we see C9 go and, like, actually, you know, grow that skill set if they're pushed at a higher level? So I think that can be the case.
Where do you land on this call, Travis? Because I remember in 2022, when the conversation was around, you know, people were starting to be like, I don't want TL to make Worlds. And obviously TL ultimately didn't make Worlds with the, you know, Bjergsen core stacked roster. You were very much from the perspective of, we need them at Worlds, you know, because they're big names, and like you seem to have this like.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I do think that, because that was the North American Worlds.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, I'm remembering this. Wow, it's very impressive that you recall my opinion on this. Yeah, I remember saying, like, look, Worlds is in North America. I think the fact that it's in North America is one of our few chances to get people to get back into watching LoL esports in the region, because most of the international events are not there. And I think they need a team that they can identify with at Worlds.
So let me give you 2 choices. C9, more likely to do well at Worlds. Obviously, well is a relative scale, but like win games. Like theoretically, their players are more experienced and better on paper, even if they're not coming together. Versus, so like therefore, maybe then our 3 core is like strong, and thus like one team is more likely to break out and make it to quarters or better. Or let's give 100 Thieves a chance because these 4 guys getting like experience is going to like level up the region. Like, how do you kind of like, if those are the 2 kind of like distinct options, how do you like resonate with those now 2 years later?
Yeah, I think, quite frankly, so the cop out answer I'll give, and then I'll give like I'll force an answer for entertainment value, is like, I think with C9 and FlyQuest, like, I'm kind of okay with either, with TL and FlyQuest going. I'm kind of okay with either of these teams going. I think TL kind of checks a lot of the box. Actually, both teams kind of check a lot of the boxes on like newer players, North American talent, like seeing storylines evolve over time while also being like recognizable faces, both on the team and as brands. And so there's not really, like, for me, I'm already really happy with the 2 teams that we have going, and like, there's not, you know, if I'm like trying to min-max around health of the league and viewership, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other for the 2 teams. I do think look, C9 had what I think was a pretty off day. I do think FlyQuest,
Yeah.
you guys have been powering up, but I don't think that what we saw, like in my mind, if you guys were going to win that, it should have been like a 3-2. I think C9 should have put up a lot more of a fight, and I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I think that
C9, the story lost on C9 is they hadn't played on this patch. They hadn't played for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think they were our like main scrim partner all split. We probably scrimmed them 15 times, 6 games. So like we probably played 90 scrim games against them over the course of the split. But our read was that their mid to late game decisions weren't that good. So we can just play full scaling and Ivern and just beat them, and they won't be able to beat us in a best of 5. And that was true on the day. Does that because we had the best plan? Was that because they were cold after not having played for a while? We always talk about the upper bracket, lower bracket on the final week. But that proved true. But they're a really, really strong team that had a poor day and potentially a misread. It's hard to bet that's going to happen a second time.
Yeah. And that is my analysis as well. Maybe not as in depth as yours, because I don't have the scrim information and all that stuff. But if the main point is like, hey, these guys underperformed, then as much as I am, as crazy as it is to say, I do really like the idea of sending C9, because I do think like we would be sending 3 pretty strong teams to an international event. And I don't feel like there's been a time like this in recent memory where I can be like normally you get 1 or 2 good teams and you get like kind of the third wild card. The third wild card often ironically outperforms the other teams. Like NRG last year. But I know that we were sent, they had won, and it was just kind of a weird thing that whatever. The fact that we could send 3 really compelling rosters to Worlds this year, I think would be really cool, because while I don't have a lot of high expectations of us like crushing LCK and LPL opponents left and right, I do think it would be very fun for North America to do very well against Europe on their own soil. So that is kind of my hope for Worlds this year, and I think C9 is a better chance at something like that happening, and just kind of give me hope that if we have like all 3 of these teams, we could do some cool shit.
I think it is worth bringing up in this too. Like I think the APA example of him going international is fantastic. We also saw NRG. I mean, that is a team that had more experience as pros, but didn't have experience internationally, and they did really well at the tournament, obviously, but that didn't really carry over to this year as much. Which, I mean, like NRG, I feel like they did have a bit of a puzzling year, given their performance like for that split and going international, and then just not like kind of going back to what their mean was, instead of like actually fighting up higher on the totem pole for LCS. But sometimes that doesn't always carry over. So that is something that like I would want to watch if a team like 100 Thieves did go over. But I agree with you, Travis.
I think for you, Travis, I will say that if it is C9, and I'm generalizing a point that's definitely, I think, true of TL and Fly, like what I will say is that I think you will see split on split or international tournament on international tournament growth that continues next year, because I don't think there's going to be significant roster changes for definitely TL and Fly, but I would presume C9 as well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if 12 of the 15 players or more were still on the same teams next year, which I think is
and obviously
that hadn't really happened before, right?
And the thing that we're not really talking about right now is like there's been back and forth rumors on whether or not 100 Thieves is even in the league next year. Yeah. And so that is like the weird thing too, is like if they are not, it's like, well, okay, cool, we sent this team to Worlds, and even if they perform well and then the brand is gone, it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, I mean the Immortals scenario was a bummer, right? Like that Immortals team was a fun team that ended up defunct after the Worlds performance.
Yeah. Parkmom had a good time at the clubs in Wuhan.
While we still have you, like outside of just team performance, is there a reason as to why you think there's not going to be that much movement among the top 3 teams? Like I can't see TL finding any reason to change anything up. I mean, whatever they have going on is clearly working for them. But I do know something that really hasn't been brought up yet is that the second region that's going to be in Americas. So like I'm just going to call it CB-LOL, right? Like LCS is here, the CB-LOL, whatever we're going to call the 2 Americas divisions.
South and North, yeah.
Yeah. So South like those salaries are going to be less because if you have ever gone to Brazil, the cost of living is like, I think a tenth of the value of what it is here, right? And that is probably going to impact like what players go where in terms of the totem pole. So besides that, are there like any other factors that you feel like would lead to our top 3 teams sticking with their core outside of just experiencing success?
I think you just look at Team Liquid and I know Spawn quite well, and like you can see they're really happy with what they've built. Like there's not really like you could be like could be a sicker Korean jungler, but like does that sicker Korean jungler speak English and work in a system? Like no.
Yeah.
So it's like the luxury change there. Like it's not 2020. Like we don't do things like that anymore. And on my team, like I also am able to see that the core really enjoys playing with each other. It's a young core. Young carries. And I think that helped. And like seeing veterans who are invested in the growth of rookies and rookies growing, like those are the teams that stay together, right? Because everybody wants to see what tomorrow looks like. Whereas the team of veterans who like peaked at some other point in their career, they're always like, okay, well, this could be better, or they're trying to reclaim a high from 5-6 years ago that they may never be able to in their career. So I think definitely TL and Fly will see very, very little change. And yeah, C9, I guess it could always be thrown apart. Like if C9 miss Worlds, it's different, right? But I think if C9 make Worlds, that's like probably the scenario for them.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, caller, for calling in. Is there anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, sure. I'll shout out you, Travis, Cubby, Papa for coming on, hosting a great show. And also shout out NZXT. I'm looking to get my wife a computer, and I'm just hoping that they got some good sales going on for Black Friday. Hopefully I can get a good deal on that.
I'm sure they will.
Also shout out YouTube chat and that one guy, Sterling. He told me to shout him out, so yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Nice. Well, hopefully Sterling hears you. So thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time. Awesome. Well, that is the show, everyone. Stick around. I will be doing something on the live stream afterwards that I'd love for everyone to help out with. But let's go ahead and do our round of shout-outs here at the end for each of us. Cubby, what do you got for us?
Shout out to NACL playoffs, to anyone and everyone that's been tuning in. You guys have been treated actually to some really fun games. And not only are we following up the LCS games this upcoming weekend, but there also are going to be games on Thursday where it's Dragonsteel versus Fierce Starforge, and the winner of that is the first team that's going to represent us in the Tier 2 Americas tournament coming up. So
that's hype.
Yeah, if anyone's been tuning in, the full Fearless gets pretty crazy. I mean, there are 40 bans in Game 5, but there are no actual bans for the game, and it's been like, actually really impactful in terms of some of the drafts. So, yeah, besides that, shout out to Papasmithy for joining us, and for those that don't know some Hotline League lore now, he's actually the one that introed me to you, Travis. So that's kind of cool looking back now.
Yeah.
That was the after party, right?
That was Houston, yeah.
Yes.
Houston after party.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
I think I introduced you to Travis, and I think I introduced Busio to Travis at that Houston as well. He was there as a sub. Good times.
That was a good party. It was a good party. Papasmithy, thanks again for coming on. What would you like to shout out?
I got a lot of shout outs. Obviously, very thankful to my LCS competitive squad. That's the players and coaches and team managers, general manager that got us to Worlds this year. Like summer 2023 was a rough time. Obviously, like a lot of memes built out of coming in proudly, thinking you were going to achieve something and then not making playoffs. So 1 year later, obviously very proud of what we achieved there. Big shout out to everyone at FlyQuest. This year has been a really great year where we've grown in a lot of different areas of the business. We've got some great partners to shout out today. Got a can of Olipop in front of me. Shout out to Olipop, NZXT, who we've given a lot of love during this broadcast, and also Anderseat, sitting on one of those right now, very comfortable chair. But yeah, all parts of the business firing on all cylinders. So feeling very thankful and trying not to get distracted by the next achievement that's like down the list. Sometimes you have to take a step back and appreciate the things you have. So it's been a great year.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. As always, really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody who called in. please catch live Hotline League next week. We'll still be doing a regular show on Monday, so you don't have to worry about that. But we will be doing that special show at the Kia stage at FanFest. Go buy your tickets for finals. Come watch FlyQuest play. Come watch some awesome FanFest stuff and participate in all that. It's going to be a good time. Listen, folks, this might be the last LCS finals, so come on.
By name, at least, yeah, right?
Yeah, and in name, yes, that's what I'm referencing. But everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you all next Monday for another episode of Hotline League.